Hey everybody, who is in charge of who gets to call themselves a Christian?
All right, let's check it out.
All right, let's see it.
The answer is nobody. There is no person or group of people on the planet who are in charge of who gets to call themselves a Christian.
So yes and no.
Just yes.
For one, anyone can call themselves a Christian. Nobody can stop someone from doing that. And secondly, when it comes down to it, you don't know anyone's heart, right? So you can't actually know if anyone is truly a Christian or not. They could be completely lying. But there is another category of people. These are people that call themselves Christians and yet reject core Christian doctrine.
So the catastrophic flaw in this claim is the fact that there is no such thing as core Christian doctrine that is authoritative for all Christians. Because as I pointed out in my video, there is no person and there is no combination of people that gets to speak authoritatively for all Christians. The best you can do is find a group of people who agree to be subject to your authority, and then you can speak authoritatively on behalf of that group. And there is no person and no combination of people to whose authority all Christians have agreed to be subjected. So you cannot establish authoritatively core Christian doctrines for all Christians. You cannot even point to anything in the Bible that is identifiable as core Christian doctrine. Even if you could, it would be open to interpretation, meaning there would be people who disagreed, and you have absolutely no authority over their ability to identify as Christian. You're just doing precisely what I said in that video. That is speaking on behalf of the people who agree with you. And that is not speaking authoritatively on behalf of all Christians.
You see, the early church, they did us a huge favor and they laid out in creeds core Christian doctrines. So if you call yourself a Christian and yet reject something from the Nicene Creed, you are not a Christian. It doesn't matter how much you say that you are. You reject core beliefs about Christianity.
So all this claim is doing is pointing to the agreement that this group of Christians has agreed will be authoritative for that group. It has absolutely no authority whatsoever beyond that group of people. It used to, because it was supplemented by imperial authority, and so force could extend the boundaries of that authority beyond the group that agreed, but it still didn't cover all Christianity. So as I pointed out in this video, all you can do is say, this is our brand of Christianity. We don't like that other brand of Christianity. Therefore, we are going to declare for the group that agrees that that other group over there doesn't get to be Christian. But again, there is no person, there is no combination of people that speaks authoritatively for all Christianity. This is not a difficult concept to grasp. You do not have authority over anyone else's identity as a Christian. You cannot like that all you want. It is demonstrable fact.
Theoretically, Jesus would be able to make that determination, but we can't seem to get a hold of him.
Well, I got good news. He's going to come back and judge the living and the dead, and he is the one who gets to decide who truly is a follower of him and who is not.
So if it's Jesus's prerogative, why did you just presume to declare who is and is not truly a Christian?
So I guess there is somebody in charge after all.
Yes, that's what I pointed out in the video. Jesus would be the one person who would have that authority.
The reality is that people pretend they get to declare who is and isn't a Christian because they're trying to speak on behalf of their own group. My group doesn't like your group. Therefore, I don't want you to be able to call yourself a Christian. That's really all that's going on here.
Now, Dan is right here. I do see groups within Christianity doing this, where a Protestant or a Catholic will try to tell an Eastern Orthodox or whatever that they're not Christian because they don't belong to their group in Christianity. That needs to stop.
You are free to stop at any time.
We all hold to the same credo doctrinal beliefs about who God is.
Well, except for those Christians who do not hold to those creedal doctrinal beliefs. Because what you're doing here is just trying to establish a necessary and sufficient feature for Christianity. It is necessary for inclusion. It is sufficient for exclusion. You're just offering an argument, and whoever agrees with you is right. Whoever disagrees with you is wrong, not because you have any authority to render them right or wrong, but because this is all about seeing who you can get to agree with you. But here's the thing. Authority is really just about consensus, unless it's about coercion. And you have neither the coercive power nor the consensus beyond the people who agree with you. So you only speak for people who already agree with you. For the folks who don't agree with you, you have no authority over what is the essentializing, necessary, and sufficient feature of Christianity. You have no way to establish that beyond that consensus. So once again, your ability to define Christianity or declare where the boundaries of Christianity are extends no further than the people who agree with you.
Just because there's some disagreements doesn't mean they're not Christians. But that's not all that's going on here.
When people say that Jehovah's Witnesses or Mormons or anybody who sincerely identifies as a Christian isn't a real Christian, really all they're saying is that's a Christian I don't like.
No, that's not what's going on. Both Mormons and Jehovah's Witnesses reject core doctrines of Christianity, namely the triunity of God and who Jesus is. And so while nobody is in charge and nobody can dictate whether or not someone calls themselves a Christian, someone calls themselves a Christian and then openly rejects core Christian beliefs, they out themselves as not being Christians.
No, they just disagree with you regarding something that you think ought to be the necessary and sufficient feature of Christianity, but have no authority to establish as the necessary and sufficient feature of Christianity beyond the power of your own assertiveness and beyond that group of people that already agrees with you. You are reifying precisely what I pointed out. You don't like that group. You don't think they should be able to be Christians. Unfortunately, you are not Jesus. You do not have the authority to declare for anyone other than those who agree with you whether or not they are Christians.
And it's not about not liking them. We want to see them come to Christ.
Which is just a way of acknowledging that's a Christian you don't like without having to acknowledge that that's a Christian you don't like. Because what I'm saying you don't like is their Christian identity. Because it's a identity you don't think ought to qualify as Christian. But you're just trying to pull the love the sinner, hate the sin rhetorical prophylaxis for hating the sinner. Because you're talking about the individual independent of their Christian identity. You want to disentangle the two and say, ooh, love to see that individual come to Christ. What I don't like is that particular Christian identity. And I'm addressing the individual as that Christian identity. That's what you don't like, and you are acknowledging that you don't like that. You just don't want to acknowledge that you don't like that because you cannot seem to think critically about this. All you seem to be able to do is just burp up the same sophomoric, naive platitudes that Christians use to convince each other that they know what they're talking about. You do not have the first clue what you are talking about. And the fit for this video is my Data Over Dogma T.